The world woke up this morning to news that no one expected. The palace has officially confirmed heartbreaking information about King Charles's condition, and already whispers of instability and uncertainty are rippling through royal circles. But that isn't even the full story, because alongside this revelation came a statement from Princess, and one that has sent shockwaves across Buckingham Palace and beyond. The next king will be William, not Prince Harry. Pause for a moment. Let that sink in. For decades, the public has speculated, theorized, and debated who would inherit the crown after Charles. Some thought the beloved Harry, the younger, charming, and unpredictable prince, might carve his own path to the throne. Others assumed it would be the dutiful, measured William, groomed in public view, seemingly born to lead. Now, Princess has confirmed the answer, and it's far more consequential than most realize. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But why does this matter now? Why should anyone outside the gilded walls of the palace care about these internal decisions? Because the monarchy, whether we love it or criticize it, is more than ceremony and tradition. It's a symbol of continuity, stability, and history. The public watches every word, every gesture, every change. Because the ripple effects go far beyond the royal family itself. Markets respond. Nations take notice. The media explodes. And in this case, what's happening behind palace doors isn't just about succession. It's about legacy, loyalty, and a family at a crossroads. Imagine the scene at Buckingham Palace when the news broke. Courtiers whispering in corridors, aides scrambling to manage statements, security protocols shifting quietly in the background. Charles, now in a state of vulnerability that the public rarely witnesses, is not only grappling with health challenges, but also the profound pressures of a line of succession that has suddenly become a lightning rod for public speculation. And then there's Anne, a princess often described as candid, sometimes even blunt, whose words now carry weight that could alter decades of assumptions. When she revealed that William will be king before Harry, it wasn't a mere formality. It was a signal, a statement that sets a course for the monarchy's future and perhaps reshapes the relationship between the brothers in ways we can only begin to imagine. This story isn't just about politics or protocol. It's about the human side of royalty, a side that the cameras rarely capture. Charles, a man who has spent his life in the glare of public attention, is facing the limitations of mortality and the inevitability of transition. His health issues are more than rumors now. They are confirmed, a reality that forces the palace to make decisions long deferred. And what does this mean for the princes, for William, who has prepared his entire life for this role, and Harry, who has taken a different path, sometimes estranged, sometimes controversial? How does a family navigate such a delicate moment without fracturing completely? Let's be honest, there's always been tension. The public has seen glimpses. Smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes, subtle gestures, carefully worded interviews. But the confirmation from Princess lifts the veil. It's no longer speculation. It's no longer debate. The palace has drawn a line in the sand, and the implications are profound. This isn't merely a story about health or succession. It's about the dynamics of a family under pressure, about ambition, loyalty, and the complex dance between public expectation and private reality. Consider the optics. For decades, the monarchy has been a delicate balancing act. Tradition versus modernity, duty versus desire, public persona versus private reality. Charles's health adds a new layer of tension. Every statement, every appearance, is scrutinized. Every subtle gesture becomes a headline. And now, with Anne's revelation, the stakes are higher than ever. William's rise isn't simply a matter of protocol. It's an event that will shape not only the monarchy's internal structure, but its public image for years to come. And for Harry, this may represent a turning point that could define the rest of his life. But there's more beneath the surface, the kind of detail the palace will never put in an official press release. Behind the official statements lie whispers of disagreement, of conflicting counsel, of quiet maneuvers to protect reputations while safeguarding power. Every member of the royal family has a role to play, and every action carries weight. And statement is not simply declarative, it's strategic. It reassures some, unsettles others, and sets the stage for the drama that is only just beginning to unfold. Ask yourself, what would you do if your family legacy were on the line, your every decision scrutinized by millions, and your own health suddenly made public knowledge? How would you reconcile private loyalty with public duty? For Charles, this isn't hypothetical. This is his reality. For William, the future king, it's both opportunity and immense responsibility. And for Harry, it's a potential crossroads that could redefine his relationship with his family, with the institution, and with the public itself. And then there's the emotional weight. Charles is more than a monarch. He's a father, a husband, a man confronting the fragility of life. The public may see only the ceremonial duties, the official appearances, the speeches, the carefully staged moments. But behind the palace walls, there are difficult conversations, quiet reflections, moments of doubt, and perhaps even moments of fear. And, often described as pragmatic, has revealed a reality that forces all parties to reckon with these personal truths, whether they are ready to face them or not. The story also raises questions about trust, loyalty, and fairness. Is succession purely a matter of rules and tradition? Or does it also reflect the personal dynamics of a family, their values, and their choices? Princess Anne's intervention, while brief and seemingly matter-of-fact, is loaded with significance. It implicitly comments on who the palace sees as ready, capable, and acceptable as the next sovereign. In doing so, it reshapes expectations, sets a narrative for the public, and creates tension between brothers who have already walked divergent paths. Now, imagine the global audience watching this unfold. Royal watchers, journalists, political analysts, and casual observers alike are all trying to read the same tea leaves. What does Charles's condition truly mean? How serious is it? Is William ready? And what will Harry's response be? These are questions that the palace cannot answer outright, but the implications ripple through headlines and social media threads, fueling speculation, debate, and emotion in equal measure. And yet, even with this announcement, the story is far from over. The palace has a way of controlling the narrative, releasing information strategically, and shaping perceptions. But insiders hint at tensions that no press release can capture, disagreements over timing, over protocol, over the message itself. Every statement is calculated, every pause deliberate. Anne's revelation is just the first domino. What comes next may not be so measured. So, as the public digests this news, one must ask, how will the monarchy navigate this period of vulnerability? How will Charles manage the dual pressures of health and legacy? How will William rise to the challenge while managing family dynamics that are more complex than any textbook on royal protocol could ever explain? And most intriguingly, how will Harry respond to being sidelined in a way that is both official and deeply personal? The answers are not simple, and the consequences are profound. This is a moment that combines the personal with the institutional, the intimate with the public. It's a story of family, power, duty, and mortality. And while the palace has spoken officially, the full impact is still unfolding behind the scenes. The whispers, the subtle glances, the private decisions, these are what will ultimately define the palace speaks. Heartbreaking confirmation. The announcement came quietly, almost imperceptibly, yet it reverberated louder than any public statement in recent memory. Buckingham Palace, a symbol of centuries-old tradition and careful restraint, confirmed what many had feared but few dared say out loud. King Charles is facing serious health challenges. The language of the statement was carefully chosen, almost clinical, but beneath the formal words lay a tension that could be felt across the globe. Every royal watcher, every journalist, every casual observer sensed it immediately. This was not a routine update. This was a signal, a sign that the monarchy was entering a moment of vulnerability that few had anticipated. But let's step back. What exactly was said, and why does it matter so much? The palace statement was concise, emphasizing the king's ongoing medical supervision and reassuring the public that he remained in good spirits. Yet, even as these words aimed to soothe, they revealed more than they concealed. The very need to issue such a statement implied a shift, a recognition that Charles's health, long a private matter, could no longer remain entirely behind closed doors. There was urgency beneath the formality, a quiet alarm that only those familiar with palace protocol could truly read. For decades, Charles has carried the weight of expectation with a quiet dignity. He has been the heir apparent longer than any other monarch in British history, trained from a young age to assume responsibilities that few can comprehend. He has weathered criticism, public scrutiny, and personal tragedy, all while preparing for a role that demands perfection at every turn. And now, at this critical juncture in his life, his health has brought the pressures of his position into stark relief. Suddenly, the public is forced to confront a reality that the palace has managed carefully for years. The man who has spent a lifetime preparing to lead may be vulnerable in ways we cannot yet fully understand. Consider the significance of this confirmation. In a monarchy, health is never merely a personal matter. It is a question of national stability, of succession, of public confidence. The king's well-being affects decisions on legislation, diplomatic relations, and even economic confidence. Every appearance, every handshake, every public engagement becomes a statement, intentional or not, about strength, continuity, and authority. By confirming Charles's condition, the palace has essentially opened a window into a world that is usually sealed off, inviting speculation while attempting to maintain order. The immediate reaction was palpable. Social media erupted within minutes. News outlets scrambled to report on what had been officially disclosed, and royal commentators dissected every word of the statement. Some emphasized the reassurance that Charles remained under expert care. Others highlighted the implication that his health challenges could affect the timing of succession. And amid the reporting, the question loomed large. What does this mean for the future of the monarchy? To understand the gravity of the announcement, we must look beyond the surface of the words. Buckingham Palace operates with a strict protocol for all communications, carefully crafting messages to balance transparency with discretion. That this statement was issued at all suggests a scenario in which internal observers, aides, advisors, medical staff, recognized a need to preempt public concern. There is no casual announcement in such a system. Every phrase is measured, every sentence considered. And yet, even in its restraint, the statement sent a ripple of alarm through royal circles and beyond. The timing adds another layer of complexity. This confirmation did not come in isolation. It coincided with mounting speculation about the line of succession and the role of Charles's children in the future of the monarchy. Rumors had been circulating for months, sometimes whispered in the halls of palaces, sometimes shouted across tabloids, about potential fractures in family loyalty, about the readiness of the next generation to assume responsibility. Now, with Charles's condition acknowledged publicly, those whispers have grown louder. The palace may have intended reassurance, but what it delivered instead was a prompt for global reflection, discussion, and, inevitably, speculation. It's also worth noting that such a confirmation is not without precedent. Monarchs have faced health crises before, but each instance carries its own unique pressures. The difference here lies not only in the personal vulnerability of the king, but also in the public expectations that have been shaped by decades of media scrutiny. In an era of instant communication, every gesture, every pause, every nuance is analyzed for meaning. The palace is aware of this reality, and yet, even the most carefully crafted statement cannot entirely control the narrative once it reaches the public sphere. Behind the official words, there is also a human story. Charles is not merely a figurehead or a title. He is a father, a husband, and a man confronting the limitations of his own body and time. Reports from insiders suggest that he has approached this period with both courage and concern, aware that his personal struggles inevitably intersect with the fate of the institution he has devoted his life to. The juxtaposition of private vulnerability and public duty creates a tension that is almost cinematic in its intensity, a drama that unfolds quietly but with immense emotional resonance. And then there is the reaction within the palace itself. Courtiers and staff, trained for decades to maintain composure, have reportedly been moved by a mix of concern and urgency. Private meetings have been held to review contingencies, assess schedules, and prepare for any eventuality. Advisors debate not just how to protect the king's health, but how to maintain public confidence during a period that may test the limits of royal patience and protocol. These internal dynamics are invisible to the public, but they shape every statement, every action, and every carefully orchestrated appearance. One fascinating aspect of this confirmation is what it does not say. There is no detailed disclosure of medical conditions, no timeline of treatment, and no discussion of limitations on the king's duties. This silence, deliberate as it is, opens a space for speculation, anxiety, and debate. The palace has signaled that Charles's health is significant enough to warrant disclosure, yet they have left crucial details obscured. In doing so, they have created a narrative tension that captivates audiences and keeps attention focused on what will happen next. So how should we interpret this? Some experts argue that the statement is primarily symbolic, a reassurance to the public that Charles remains capable and in good spirits. Others suggest that it reflects a deeper concern, a recognition that succession planning must now accelerate, and that the monarchy must prepare for transitions that were previously considered distant. Either way, the message is clear. Charles's health is now a matter of public record, and it carries consequences that extend far beyond the palace walls. And speaking of consequences, this is where the story intersects with Princess Anne's revelation. While the palace confirmed the king's condition and delivered a statement that reframed the entire conversation, her declaration that William will inherit the throne before Harry casts the health confirmation in a new light. It suggests that the monarchy is already making decisions in anticipation of potential changes, and it implies a strategic approach to succession that takes both capability and loyalty into account. In other words, the health confirmation is not an isolated fact. It is a catalyst for a broader series of decisions, maneuvers, and revelations that could redefine the royal family for generations. The emotional resonance of this moment cannot be overstated. The public, long accustomed to the monarchy's stoic presentations, is now invited into a space of vulnerability, tension, and uncertainty. Charles, a man who has navigated decades of scrutiny and expectation, is suddenly framed not only as a leader, but as someone grappling with the fragility of life itself. William and Harry, meanwhile, must confront the reality that their positions, relationships, and futures are entwined with these developments in ways they cannot fully control. And yet, even as the palace attempts to manage the narrative, there is an undercurrent of suspense that cannot be contained. Every observer is left with questions. How serious is the king's condition? How will it affect his ability to govern and fulfill ceremonial duties? How will William prepare to step into a role that he has trained for his entire life, while managing a brother who has taken a very different path? And perhaps most importantly, what decisions are being made behind the scenes that the public will not hear about until it is too late to intervene? The confirmation of Charles's condition is only the beginning. It is the opening act of a drama that will unfold over months, perhaps years. It sets the stage for a story of family, power, duty, and vulnerability. It reminds the public that monarchy is not merely a ceremonial institution. It is a living, breathing family navigating extraordinary circumstances. And it leaves us with a question that resonates far beyond royal fascination. How do you manage continuity and stability when the foundation itself is suddenly called into question? The palace statement, concise though it was, has created a ripple effect that reaches into every corner of the monarchy, every household that follows royal news, and every conversation about leadership, legacy, and family loyalty. And in the midst of this, Princess Anne's declaration looms large, hinting at decisions and dynamics that are as strategic as they are personal. The stage is set for a drama that blends history, emotion, and intrigue, a story that promises to captivate and shock in equal measure. But what the palace revealed publicly was only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, tensions simmer, decisions are debated, and the course of the monarchy hangs in a delicate balance. What comes next, the actions of the king, the responses of his children, the maneuvers of insiders, will shape the royal family's future in ways no one can fully predict. And for the public watching, the unfolding drama promises revelations that will shock, challenge, and perhaps redefine everything they thought they knew about the British monarchy. Few expected Princess Anne to speak so candidly, and even fewer anticipated the seismic impact of her words. In a rare moment of openness, she confirmed what the palace had been silently navigating behind closed doors. The next king will be William, not Prince Harry. Those 6 words, simple on the surface, sent shockwaves across Buckingham Palace, royal circles, and the world. The very announcement challenges assumptions, disrupts expectations, and shines an unforgiving light on the tensions that have long simmered within the royal family, and has never been one to mince words. Often described as blunt, pragmatic, and deeply loyal to her family, she occupies a unique position in the monarchy. Unlike Charles, who is bound by decades of public scrutiny and a delicate balancing act of diplomacy, and has carved out a role defined by candor, duty, and direct action. She has watched the drama of her siblings unfold for decades, observing the pressures, conflicts, and decisions that have shaped the monarchy's modern form. And now, with her statement about succession, she is stepping forward not as a mediator, but as a herald of change, someone willing to speak uncomfortable truths at a moment of high tension. The context of Anne's declaration matters. For months, rumors have swirled about who would follow Charles on the throne. The public, media, and even some insiders have speculated endlessly. Harry, the charismatic younger prince, has long been a favorite of both press and public. William, more measured, disciplined, and dutiful, has been the predictable heir apparent. But prediction is never certainty, and loyalty within the royal family has always been as complex as the centuries-old rules governing succession. Anne's statement, delivered with precision, cuts through the speculation and sets a definitive course, for better or worse. Her words carry weight not only because of her position, but also because of timing. By speaking now, Anne signals a recognition that Charles's health is a factor that can no longer be ignored. She frames the future of the monarchy with an eye toward stability, emphasizing the need for continuity while implicitly drawing a line between those deemed ready and those who are not. The decision to publicly declare William as next in line over Harry is not merely procedural. It is strategic, emotional, and, in many ways, unprecedented in its clarity. To understand why this matters, we need to look at Anne's relationship with her brothers and nephews. She has long been considered a stabilizing force within the family, someone who understands the pressures of royalty but is willing to prioritize duty over personal preference. Her loyalty to tradition does not preclude pragmatism. Indeed, it demands it. By endorsing William as the next king, Anne is signaling her judgment of who can best carry the crown at a critical moment. A judgment that will inevitably be scrutinized, debated, and dissected by the public and media alike. But Anne's revelation is also emotionally charged. Consider the implications for Harry. The younger prince, once at the center of public adoration, now faces a reality in which his path to the throne is officially curtailed. The announcement is not merely procedural, it is personal. The family dynamic shifts, the emotional stakes rise, and the public witnesses the fracture points that have long existed beneath the veneer of royal protocol. The contrast between William and Harry is stark, one groomed for decades in public view, the other carving a more independent path, often at odds with tradition and expectation. Anne's words crystallize that contrast, leaving no ambiguity about the palace's current stance. There is also the matter of public perception. Royal watchers and media commentators immediately seized on Anne's statement, analyzing every nuance. Some framed it as an affirmation of William's readiness and capability, painting him as the natural heir whose preparation and temperament make him the obvious choice. Others interpreted it as a subtle rebuke of Harry, whose recent choices and departures from royal duties may have influenced perceptions of his suitability. The palace, already under scrutiny due to Charles's health, now faces a complex challenge, managing not just the succession but the narrative surrounding it. Anne's timing is critical because the monarchy operates on both optics and tradition. Every statement, every gesture, every public engagement is calculated to maintain authority, inspire confidence, and project stability. In stepping forward, Anne disrupts the usual rhythm. She is both messenger and architect, shaping perceptions while conveying truths that the palace may have preferred to handle quietly. Her declaration is a signal, a line in the sand that communicates more than words alone could achieve. And yet, there is nuance. Anne's endorsement of William is not an attack on Harry. It is framed as a decision based on readiness, capability, and duty. This subtlety is key. In the world of royalty, perception is everything, and Anne's choice of words ensures that her statement reinforces hierarchy without overtly creating scandal. Nevertheless, the emotional impact is unavoidable. Harry, whether publicly or privately, will experience the weight of this declaration, and the palace will have to manage both perception and consequence. The decision also has historical resonance. Succession disputes are not new in the monarchy, but they rarely emerge so publicly, so dramatically, and with such clarity. Anne's statement stands as both a declaration and a historical marker, an acknowledgement that the next generation of royals must assume responsibility at a time of personal, familial, and institutional vulnerability. It underscores the delicate interplay of tradition, personal judgment, and strategic foresight that defines the monarchy's survival. Consider the broader family dynamics. Charles is confronted not only with health challenges, but with the need to reconcile loyalty, ambition, and family cohesion. William, as the next king, must navigate the expectations of duty, leadership, and public scrutiny, while also managing the delicate relationship with his younger brother. Anne's revelation magnifies these tensions, bringing them into public focus while subtly shaping the narrative of succession. Public reaction is immediate and intense. Social media buzzes with speculation, debates erupt in newsrooms, and royal commentators dissect every angle. Some express support for William as the capable heir, emphasizing stability and preparedness. Others express sympathy for Harry, questioning whether his exclusion reflects fairness or deeper familial rifts. The discussion transcends celebrity gossip. It is a meditation on duty, family, and the pressures of a life lived under constant public gaze. And yet, even as the world reacts, there are layers of intrigue that remain hidden. Behind the announcement, decisions were made in consultation with advisors, medical experts, and family members. Contingency plans were reviewed, schedules adjusted, and communications carefully timed. Anne's statement, while public, represents a culmination of careful strategy, a decision that balances transparency with control, clarity with discretion. It is a message that reverberates through palace corridors even as the public digests its meaning. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of this revelation is the human dimension, and, often seen as pragmatic and reserved, has chosen a moment of candidness that highlights the emotional stakes. She understands the pressures of royalty, the expectations of the public, and the fragility of family bonds. By speaking, she acknowledges the reality of Charles's condition while shaping the succession narrative in a way that is both strategic and emotionally resonant. And what does this mean for the future? William now carries not only the weight of impending kingship, but the responsibility of navigating a complex family dynamic that has been thrust into the spotlight. Harry faces a moment of reckoning, in which his choices, relationships, and public image may define the nature of his involvement with the monarchy going forward. And, meanwhile, occupies a pivotal role, balancing loyalty, pragmatism, and influence as the monarchy charts a course through uncertain waters. The palace, as ever, is watching, calculating, and managing every detail. But even the most carefully crafted plans cannot fully anticipate human emotion, public reaction, or the unforeseen consequences of such a bold declaration. The announcement is both an end and a beginning, an end to speculation, a beginning to a new chapter in a story that is as much about family as it is about institution. And so, the world watches. The headlines blare, the commentary flows, and the palace remains a stage on which both history and human drama unfold simultaneously. Anne's revelation has created a pivot point, a moment that forces everyone, family, public, and monarchy alike, to confront difficult truths and inevitable changes. The consequences will unfold over time, shaping relationships, expectations, and the very nature of succession itself. But just as this chapter closes, one question looms. How will Harry respond to being officially sidelined? Will he accept the decision with grace, or will tension, resentment, and conflict emerge in ways no one anticipates? The answer, hidden behind palace walls and private hearts, could change the course of the monarchy forever. Few stories in modern royal history are as compelling or as fraught as the story of William and Harry. On the surface, They are brothers, princes, sons of Charles and Diana, heirs in a lineage that stretches back centuries. But beneath the ceremonial appearances and public smiles lies a tension that has grown over decades, subtle yet profound, a rift that the palace has long tried to manage behind closed doors. The confirmation that William will inherit the throne before Harry, delivered by Princess Anne, has not created this divide. It has illuminated it, shining a spotlight on family dynamics that were always complex but are now unavoidable. The brothers' relationship is a mixture of love, rivalry, loyalty, and disappointment. William, the elder, was groomed from a young age with a singular trajectory in mind: preparation for kingship. From his school days to military service, from official engagements to public speeches, he was carefully molded in public view, observed under a microscope, and expected to embody the dignity, discipline, and duty associated with monarchy. Harry, by contrast, took a more independent route. Often described as free-spirited, outspoken, and unpredictable, he carved a path that sometimes clashed with expectation and tradition. The differences between them were never just personality. They were amplified by public scrutiny, media obsession, and the constant glare of expectation. Consider their early life. As children, they shared moments of laughter, mischief, and sibling camaraderie. Yet even then, the pressures of royal life were ever present. William, firstborn and future heir, carried an implicit weight on his shoulders. Harry, as the younger son, had the freedom to explore and rebel, but also the pressure to match public expectation in less defined ways. These formative experiences planted the seeds for a divide that, over time, would grow more pronounced, particularly as adulthood brought responsibility, visibility, and personal choices with real-world consequences. Publicly, the brothers have appeared united at ceremonial events, on official visits, and during family celebrations. But subtle cues, a fleeting glance, a missed handshake, a pause in conversation, have often revealed the tensions beneath. These moments, magnified by media coverage, fueled speculation. Are they close? Are they drifting apart? Is one favored over the other? While the palace rarely comments on internal family dynamics, those who have observed them closely note a pattern. William embodies stability and tradition. Harry embodies independence and emotion. And now, with Anne's statement placing William ahead in succession, that pattern is underscored in a way that is impossible to ignore. The divergence in their paths became especially visible in recent years. William, increasingly seen as a public leader, assumed responsibilities that his father once held, taking on charitable work, environmental advocacy, and ceremonial duties with a measured approach. Harry, meanwhile, pursued projects that often involved more personal expression and sometimes controversy: media deals, interviews, and humanitarian work with a focus on causes close to his heart. These choices reflect differences in temperament, priorities, and approach to public life. But they also highlight a subtle tension. The palace, the public, and even the brothers themselves are forced to reconcile their familial bond with the demands of institution and expectation. And yet, despite the differences, there remains undeniable love. William and Harry share memories, grief, and family history that no public statement can erase. The death of Princess Diana was a formative tragedy that shaped both of them profoundly, and their shared experiences of loss, scrutiny, and expectation create a bond that endures even amid conflict. But love does not eliminate tension. In fact, it often intensifies it, because the stakes are higher, the emotions more complex, and the choices more consequential. The confirmation that William will precede Harry in succession raises questions about loyalty, perception, and the unspoken rules of royalty. For William, this is both affirmation and responsibility, a public acknowledgement that he is the heir apparent, tasked with navigating the monarchy's future at a time of immense scrutiny. For Harry, it is a potential moment of reckoning, an official signal that his path diverges from the direct line of succession, despite public perception, familial affection, and his own aspirations. What makes this divide more dramatic is the interplay of perception and reality. The public often views royal life through a lens of glamour, privilege, and ceremony. But beneath that surface lies a complex network of expectations, duties, and pressures that shape behavior, influence decisions, and strain relationships. William and Harry exist at the intersection of personal ambition, public duty, and historical legacy. Every choice is amplified, every emotion scrutinized, every action interpreted as symbolic. And when Princess Anne publicly endorses William as the next king, it becomes a focal point. A moment in which private dynamics collide with public narrative in a way that cannot be ignored. There is also the element of trust and communication. Insiders suggest that while William has been methodical and measured in his approach to family and duty, Harry has often acted independently, pursuing personal projects and public statements that, intentionally or not, challenge palace norms. This difference has created a subtle tension. William's path is linear, disciplined, and carefully managed. Harry's is dynamic, sometimes unpredictable, and increasingly autonomous. The announcement from and crystallizes these contrasts, highlighting both readiness and deviation in a way that is impossible to ignore. The emotional stakes are further heightened by public expectations. Supporters of both brothers bring their own biases, opinions, and passions into the conversation, creating a media environment that magnifies every nuance. William's steadiness is praised as a mark of preparation and leadership, while Harry's independence is alternately celebrated and criticized. The palace, aware of these dynamics, must navigate communication, appearances, and protocol with extreme care, because any misstep has consequences for both the family and the institution. Interestingly, the divide is not simply personal, it is generational. William represents continuity, tradition, and adherence to established norms. Harry embodies modernity, personal expression, and sometimes rebellion against convention. This contrast reflects broader societal trends, highlighting the tension between maintaining legacy and adapting to contemporary expectations. In this way, the brothers' dynamic is more than a family story. It is a reflection of the monarchy itself, an institution at a crossroads, balancing history, perception, and the demands of a changing world. Yet, despite all the analysis, the human side remains compelling. Both brothers are navigating a period of extraordinary pressure, public attention, and personal expectation. William faces the weight of preparing for kingship while managing the relationship with his younger brother, whose public statements and actions often challenge traditional norms. Harry must reconcile ambition, individuality, and familial loyalty with the knowledge that the line of succession now officially favors his brother. The intersection of duty, emotion, and legacy creates a tension that is both intimate and monumental. And then there is the media lens. Every interaction, every gesture, every interview is amplified, dissected, and analyzed. Headlines describe rivalry, estrangement, and comparison, while social media fans debate who is favored, who is more capable, and who represents the future of the monarchy. This constant scrutiny exacerbates tensions, making every action a potential flashpoint and every statement a potential headline. Amidst all this, Princess Anne's statement looms large. By declaring William the heir over Harry, she is not merely reinforcing protocol. She is exposing fault lines, emphasizing readiness, and signaling expectations for both brothers. The announcement forces a reckoning. William must rise to meet the mantle of expectation, while Harry must navigate the emotional, relational, and public implications of exclusion from the immediate line of succession. The drama is not hypothetical, it is unfolding in real time. Private conversations, personal reflections, and family dynamics now play out against the backdrop of a public institution watched by millions. Each decision, each gesture, each statement carries meaning. The monarchy is more than ceremony. It is a web of relationships, choices, and pressures that are now on full display. And yet, even as we observe, the most significant moments remain hidden behind palace walls. How do William and Harry reconcile love with rivalry? How do they navigate duty with personal desire? How will their relationship evolve under the twin pressures of expectation and scrutiny? These questions are not rhetorical. They are living, breathing realities that will shape the monarchy's future. As the chapter closes, one fact is undeniable. The confirmation that William will succeed Charles before Harry has transformed speculation into certainty, altered expectations, and cast a light on family dynamics that were previously private. The divide is real, complex, and unavoidable. It is emotional, strategic, and historically significant. And yet, even now, one question hangs in the air. How will Harry respond to being officially sidelined? And what unseen actions might he take behind the scenes that could redefine the monarchy's future entirely? The king is unwell. 3 words that no royal observer wants to hear, yet they now carry unprecedented significance. Buckingham Palace has confirmed what insiders had whispered for months. King Charles is facing serious health challenges, and the implications reach far beyond his personal well-being. This isn't a casual update. This is a moment that forces the monarchy, the public, and the royal family itself to confront a reality that has been long deferred, that the man who has spent his life preparing to lead may now be vulnerable in ways the public rarely sees. To understand the magnitude of this crisis, it's essential to step into the world Charles inhabits. Unlike ordinary citizens, every action, every gesture, every appearance carries weight. From public engagements to charitable events, from diplomatic meetings to ceremonial obligations, the king's life is meticulously structured, demanding physical stamina, mental focus, and emotional resilience. A health challenge isn't just personal. It has ripple effects that touch governance, diplomacy, public perception, and the delicate balance of family dynamics. What exactly do we know? Officially, the palace has been cautious, emphasizing that the king is under medical supervision and remains in good spirits. Yet behind these words lie layers of concern, observation, and preparation. Reports from insiders suggest that the king has experienced episodes that require careful monitoring. Some indicate fatigue, others hint at specific medical conditions being evaluated discreetly by a team of specialists. The palace's careful wording, reassuring the public without disclosing details, is a strategic attempt to maintain stability while signaling that the situation is being managed. Charles's health challenges are not entirely new. Over the years, he has experienced minor medical scares, periods of fatigue, and age-related conditions that have occasionally limited his capacity for public engagement. But the difference now lies in scale, timing, and consequence. This is a king whose physical and mental stamina is integral to the functioning of the monarchy. Any limitation, no matter how temporary, has immediate implications for succession planning, public confidence, and the coordination of royal duties. Consider the human dimension. Charles is not merely a title or a symbol. He is a father, a husband, and a man confronting the vulnerability that comes with age and responsibility. He has long carried the weight of expectation, both personal and institutional. The loss of Diana, the pressures of public scrutiny, and the lifelong preparation for kingship have left their mark. And now, with confirmed health issues, that weight is heavier than ever. Imagine navigating global crises, family tensions, and public duties while your own body demands attention, caution, and care. It is a delicate balance that few outside the palace can truly comprehend. There are also the practical implications. The monarchy cannot pause. Engagements, international visits, ceremonial duties, and official functions continue. Even brief absences or limitations can create gaps that require delegation, adjustment, or substitution. For a monarch whose role is both symbolic and functional, this requires meticulous planning, strategic foresight, and constant adaptation. Reports suggest that aides and advisors are reviewing contingency plans, adjusting schedules, and preparing for scenarios that were previously considered distant or hypothetical. But the intrigue deepens when you consider the secrecy surrounding royal health. The palace has historically guarded such information closely. Announcements about illness are rare and carefully framed to maintain confidence and dignity. That a statement has now been issued at all indicates both the seriousness of the situation and the need to preempt public speculation. The very act of disclosure is a signal, a strategic move that tells the world, Charles is being cared for, but the monarchy is entering a period of heightened vigilance and preparation. Experts who have studied royal health patterns note that Charles's age, now in his mid-70s, naturally brings challenges. Cardiovascular issues, fatigue, and other age-related concerns are common, but in his role, even minor conditions are magnified. Every engagement requires energy, focus, and resilience. A missed event or diminished capacity, even temporarily, can trigger public concern, media scrutiny, and internal recalibration of duties. The stakes, therefore, are higher than for any ordinary individual. The palace's messaging has also been shaped to balance reassurance with caution. While emphasizing that Charles remains in good spirits, the statement implicitly acknowledges vulnerability. It reassures the public that duties continue, yet it allows for interpretation, prompting speculation, concern, and attention. In other words, the statement serves dual purposes, calming anxiety while simultaneously highlighting the seriousness of the situation. It is a delicate dance that only the monarchy can perform, leveraging language, timing, and perception to maintain control. Now, consider the broader implications. Charles's health is directly tied to succession planning. His condition, while private, accelerates conversations about who will step into leadership and when. Princess Anne's recent statement, placing William ahead of Harry in the line of succession, takes on greater significance in this context. The monarchy must prepare for eventualities, ensuring stability while respecting family dynamics, tradition, and public expectation. The health confirmation is not merely a fact, it is a catalyst for decisions that will reverberate for decades. And what of Charles himself? Insiders describe a monarch who is determined, resilient, and aware of his responsibilities. Reports suggest that he approaches each day with focus and resolve, striving to maintain appearances while managing private limitations. Yet the physical and emotional toll is undeniable. The dual pressures of personal health and public expectation create an environment of constant vigilance, where every action is carefully measured and every engagement requires careful assessment. Medical experts familiar with royal protocols emphasize that the palace often errs on the side of privacy. Disclosure is rare and typically delayed until circumstances demand it. That the palace has now issued a statement indicates a threshold has been crossed, a recognition that concealment is no longer tenable, and that proactive communication is essential to maintain public trust and institutional continuity. This health crisis also intersects with family dynamics in profound ways. Charles's children, particularly William and Harry, are positioned at a crossroads of duty, expectation, and personal ambition. William, as the next in line, faces the immediate responsibility of preparing to assume a role that may arrive sooner than anticipated. Harry, already distanced in some ways from official duties, must navigate the emotional and public implications of his brother's accelerated path. Family bonds, loyalty, and legacy are all tested when the patriarch himself is vulnerable. Public reaction has been intense. News outlets around the world scrambled to interpret the statement. Social media erupted with speculation, and royal commentators debated the severity of the king's condition. For the public, this is not just a story about health. It is a window into the continuity and stability of one of the world's most visible institutions. Every reported symptom, every official engagement, and every appearance becomes a potential clue, analyzed for signs of weakness, readiness, or impending transition. Yet, even as speculation grows, the human element remains compelling. Charles is navigating private fears, the pressures of legacy, and the expectations of a family that has already endured extraordinary public scrutiny. His health is a reminder that behind the pomp and protocol lies vulnerability, mortality, and the complexity of human experience. The man who is king is also a father, a son, and a human being confronting the limits of endurance and time. The stakes are not limited to personal or familial concerns. The monarchy is a national institution, a symbol of continuity, and a touchstone for identity and stability. Any disruption, perceived or real, has implications that extend to public confidence, governmental continuity, and international perception. Charles's health, therefore, is not merely a private concern. It is a matter of public consequence. And as we consider the future, one question looms larger than any other. How will this health crisis influence succession, family dynamics, and the balance of power within the palace? And statement about William becomes all the more consequential in this context. suggesting a deliberate approach to stability, continuity, and the preservation of the institution. The choices made now, behind closed doors, will shape the monarchy for decades. But even as advisors plan, statements are issued, and the public reacts, one fact remains. The full extent of Charles's health challenges is known only to a handful of insiders. Every day brings new decisions, delicate judgments, and the potential for unforeseen developments. And in this environment of uncertainty, the next move, whether from the king, his children, or palace officials, could dramatically reshape the narrative. For decades, Queen Elizabeth II has been the unshakable pillar of the British monarchy. Her reign spanned decades, defined by poise, dedication, and an almost unparalleled ability to navigate both public scrutiny and private family pressures. To understand the current moment, Charles's health crisis, William's ascension, and Harry's sidelining, we must first grasp the magnitude of the legacy he inherits. The shadow of Elizabeth II looms large, not as a threat, but as a standard, a benchmark, and a weight that Charles has carried his entire adult life. Elizabeth's legacy is one of stability and continuity. Through wars, political crises, scandals, and the shifting tides of public opinion, she maintained a calm, steady hand. For the public, she became more than a monarch. She became a symbol, a reassurance that the institution would endure regardless of turbulence. But for Charles, this legacy has been both inspiring and burdensome. Every step he takes, every decision he makes, is inevitably compared to hers. In this sense, Charles's health challenges are not merely a matter of biology. They are a symbolic moment, a point at which the continuity of an extraordinary reign is visibly transitioning into the next generation. The pressure on Charles has been immense, often invisible to the public eye. From the moment of his mother's coronation to his own preparation as heir apparent, he has been groomed for responsibility that many would find suffocating. Public expectations are relentless. Be wise, be compassionate, be decisive, be relatable, be steadfast. And now, decades later, those expectations are intensified by the confirmation of health concerns. Every misstep, every fatigue-filled public appearance, is scrutinized not only for the man he is, but for the symbolic continuation of a legacy forged over 70 years. Charles's life has not been without personal strain. The public remembers Diana, Princess of Wales, and the pressures that defined their marriage. The media scrutiny, the public expectations, the familial tensions, all left indelible marks on the prince who would become king. Elizabeth's legacy of resilience is, paradoxically, a standard that Charles must uphold while navigating his own vulnerabilities. In short, he inherits not only the crown but the weight of expectations, comparisons, and history. The stakes are even higher given the current context. Princess Anne's revelation that William will succeed Charles before Harry casts this moment in sharper relief. The palace, recognizing Charles's health limitations, is now moving decisively to ensure that the next generation is prepared to maintain stability. The transition, while procedural, is emotionally and symbolically loaded. Charles is not simply passing power. He is safeguarding a legacy, balancing familial loyalty with institutional responsibility, and navigating the difficult terrain of succession in public view. Public perception plays a critical role. Citizens have watched Elizabeth for decades and have formed expectations about what monarchy should look like. The Queen's steadiness, calm, and apparent invulnerability have become the benchmark against which Charles is measured. Every statement, every engagement, every appearance now carries echoes of her legacy. Even minor lapses, fatigue, hesitation, or absence are amplified because they contrast with the unbroken continuity of Elizabeth's reign. For Charles, these comparisons are unavoidable, creating a pressure cooker scenario that the public rarely sees in its full intensity. Behind palace walls, aides and advisors are acutely aware of these pressures. Strategies are carefully crafted, schedules meticulously planned, and communications precisely managed. Charles's health is closely monitored not only for his well-being, but to preserve public confidence in the monarchy. The intersection of personal health, legacy, and public expectation creates an environment of constant vigilance, where even small decisions have outsized consequences. The emotional dimension cannot be overstated. Charles is not only managing a personal health crisis, but confronting the reality that the throne, once firmly anticipated for his lifetime, may require earlier preparation and delegation than expected. The weight of history, the expectations of the public, and the demands of family converge in ways that are deeply personal, yet inherently public. Every glance from a camera, every subtle gesture, every statement becomes a reflection of his ability to carry Elizabeth's legacy forward. And there is a psychological toll. The pressure of living in a shadow, even one as luminous as Elizabeth's, is immense. The king must navigate the expectation to emulate her resilience while honoring his own identity, preferences, and approach to leadership. For decades, the monarchy has relied on continuity, the assurance that tradition and duty remain unbroken. Now, with confirmed health concerns and a clear succession plan that favors William, Charles is forced to reconcile the weight of legacy with the realities of personal limitation. The stakes extend beyond Charles himself. William, as the next in line, must step into a role defined by the need to honor Elizabeth's legacy while also asserting his own identity and vision. Harry faces the emotional reality of a family and institution that, for now, will prioritize William's preparation and stability. Anne's intervention, therefore, is more than a statement. It is a reinforcement of continuity, a strategic decision to safeguard both legacy and institutional integrity. This dynamic underscores the broader tension between tradition and personal agency. Monarchs are expected to uphold traditions, provide guidance, and embody continuity. Yet they are also human beings, subject to fatigue, emotion, and personal circumstance. Charles's health challenges highlight this tension, illustrating that even the most prepared heir is vulnerable to forces beyond his control. The palace, ever conscious of optics and perception, now faces a dual challenge. Maintaining public confidence while navigating the deeply personal realities of a king who is, for the first time, visibly human. There are historical parallels, of course. Previous monarchs faced health crises that tested both public confidence and familial loyalty. Yet few had the immediacy of global media scrutiny and the constant magnification of every gesture. Elizabeth's reign was remarkable for its stability, but Charles's era begins at a moment of vulnerability, health concerns, and family tension. The transition is therefore unprecedented in its combination of tradition, personal stakes, and public attention. The emotional resonance extends to the family unit itself. The siblings, the next generation, and extended relatives are all navigating a complex landscape. William must balance preparation for kingship with support for his father. Harry must reconcile independence with loyalty and the emotional impact of Anne's statement. And Charles, at the center, must reconcile personal health, family loyalty, and institutional duty. The palace functions as a mechanism for order, but it cannot eliminate the emotional complexity that this moment brings. Public reaction mirrors this complexity. Headlines praise William's readiness, speculate about Harry's response, and analyze Charles's ability to continue his duties. Social media debates swirl between loyalty to tradition and empathy for personal vulnerability. Experts weigh in on health, succession, and public perception. And the monarchy, aware of these pressures, carefully calibrates its communications to maintain confidence without revealing too much, maintaining a delicate equilibrium between transparency and discretion. The tension is palpable because this is a turning point. Elizabeth's legacy is no longer a backdrop. It is a standard against which every decision, action, and engagement is measured. Charles must navigate expectations that are both historical and immediate, honoring the past while confronting present limitations. Anne's statement about William crystallizes the necessity of continuity, providing both clarity and a subtle pressure point that the family must manage with care. And yet, the most gripping questions remain unresolved. How will Charles balance duty with health? Will William rise seamlessly to meet expectations, or will the weight of responsibility reveal cracks? How will Harry respond to being sidelined, emotionally and strategically? From the moment he first walked the halls of royal palaces as a small boy, William was groomed for a singular destiny: kingship. Every step he has taken, every lesson he has absorbed, every public appearance he has made has been meticulously aligned with the expectations of monarchy. Unlike his younger brother Harry, whose path has been more independent, William's trajectory has been linear, disciplined, and honed for leadership. And now, with Princess and publicly confirming that William will succeed Charles before Harry, the spotlight on his preparation has never been more intense. William's journey has been a mixture of formal education, public observation, personal trial, and emotional endurance. At Eton, he was not just a student. He was an heir in training, observed and evaluated in every aspect of his behavior. Lessons extended beyond academics into the realms of diplomacy, etiquette, and public speaking. He learned to navigate expectations, balancing authenticity with protocol, humor with decorum, and ambition with humility. These were skills not just for today, but for a lifetime under public scrutiny. Military service was another pivotal component. Like many heirs before him, William's time in the armed forces was not merely ceremonial. It was transformative. Rigorous training, leadership exercises, and first-hand exposure to crisis situations taught him discipline, responsibility, and resilience. But it also shaped his worldview, exposing him to realities far removed from the polished halls of the palace. These experiences instilled a sense of duty that is both practical and symbolic, reinforcing the qualities deemed essential for a future king. Public engagement has been a cornerstone.